One of the beauties about taking a smart object into Camera Raw is that all our changes are editable. Nothing we do is permanent unless we save it and enjoy what we have. So a place to start. And typically with auto, this works best with photographs. We've got some strange combinations of colors here, and quite often, Photoshop doesn't know what to do with this. And you might say, is this better? You hit the letter P, preview. Boom, boom. And I kind of like what we had before, but from here, I'm going to go ahead, because we can always reset all this. You notice the vibrance and saturation got pumped up a little bit, and then you can see the settings here, where they moved from, if I hit the letter P, from dead center. All of these start out right in the middle. So hit the letter P again, and that's what we have. Now, dehaze can add some richness to your photos. And it's not always, see how it hit the blues first, and the other colors, if I hit P, other colors don't seem to be as affected. And then clarity gives us, in conjunction with dehaze, can give us a little gradient effect. It's really easy to go too far and blow things out. There's a fine line between enhancing an image and blowing out an image. And everyone, myself included, hey, if a little bit's good, well, then a lot must be better. And you just take everything on up and, ooh, cool. Is it? Is it? So I'm going to go back to default, these two, pull these two back down, and find a sweet spot here that I like. And then notice I took auto off. Now if you decrease, after you add these, if you decrease the shadows, watch what happens. See how you're affecting different parts of the color you've laid down. Same thing with the whites. Contrast, pull it both ways just to see what happens. What do you like? Which side? Because sometimes one is better, sometimes less contrast, sometimes more. And you find what works for you. There's no right answers here. Don't copy down these settings because it's going to be different. Sometimes increasing the saturation is great. Sometimes decreasing the saturation gives you more interest. I'm going to reset that to 0. There are other tabs here. I showed you before this HSL adjustments. You've got hue, where we can actually change. Hey, we've got some green in here. What if we want to make that green yellow? Or more teal. Maybe that is something you like more. I'm going to go back to default here. The saturation, here's where these blues are kind of dominating right now. So if I tone down the blues a little bit, it starts to fit in better with everything else. Maybe these magentas need to be pumped up a little more saturated, maybe a little more in the orange. And you just find your sweet spot. Nothing's right or wrong. And then the luminance value, how bright or dark are these? What if our magentas were a little darker? Now oranges. What about the greens? Now these start to match the blues a little better now. Again, no right and wrong answers. The FX tab adds grain. Well, there's more here once you start playing with it. I don't know that grain is a good idea because this is so small. The end result of this is so small. And then a vignette. Because we have a dark background, all this is going to do is kind of darken up this outer edge, which, quite frankly, could use it. Hit the letter P, that's where we started, that's where we are. Going through these, we'll play with those later. Sharpening, you don't need. For an image like this, you don't want to sharpen. For a photograph, sharpening comes into play. This is the histogram, the distribution of colors. There's very little out here in the dark other than the black. So if I drag this point in, and typically, what you can do to make something look better 90% of the time is give it what's called an S-curve, a contrast curve. You lower the darks a little, you bump up the lights a little, and what does that look like, compared to the other? So again, we're looking at our original and seeing what has happened. And what happens if we pull this black in a little bit? See, we start, because the rest of these colors don't start until right about here. So if we bring this in, now it starts to get, a little bit hot in different places. So maybe that's too much. Again, no right and wrong answers here. You got to play around with it and try to find what works for you. And we'll come back to one more thing. We could noodle with this forever, trying to find what works best. And also you can throw, and I don't like either one of those, so hit Command Z, zero that back out. And then of course there's always the exposure. And you find that, and I'm going to click OK. Now, anytime we want to edit this, we just double click on the camera raw filter, takes us right back out there. Again, this is going to work different on every picture. Every picture is going to react differently, and sometimes, it works, sometimes it doesn't. For right now, you can turn the camera raw off to see before and after. And you can see we have a lot more contrast, we have more visual interest, and this starts to work a little better. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? No. It's just a demo. Something we're going to build on.